A mother sheepdog begged passersby to save her puppies, but they ignored her. Why was a smart sheepdog barking desperately at an empty sewer grate in the middle of a busy park? No one asked themselves this question. The scorching July air melted over the asphalt, forcing people to seek refuge in the shade of rare trees. The dog, a beautiful German shepherd with amber eyes full of unbearable anguish, was just an annoying nuisance in this haze. She ran up to passersby, whimpering quietly, delicately pulling at the hem of their trousers or the bottom of their dresses with her teeth. Her fur was matted, and on her right side was a fresh abrasion scraped down to the flesh. But people saw not a plea, but a threat. Mothers pulled their children away, men waved her away in disgust, teenagers filmed her on their phones, laughing. The dog returned again and again to the cast-iron circle of the manhole, peered into the dark crack, and let out a desperate, broken bark. She wasn't asking for food. She was begging for help. Before we continue, let us know which city you are from. We are interested to know where our videos are being watched. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. This motivates us to make new and interesting videos. Well, let's begin. Anna Vorontsova would not have noticed her. She had noticed very little in recent months. The world had shrunk to a gray veil through which neither the bright sun, nor laughter, nor the scent of blooming lime trees could penetrate. At 28, she moved like an old woman. A baggy dress hid her once slender figure, and her empty eyes stared through objects. She was walking home from a job she no longer had, to a home that had become foreign to her. But a dog blocked her way. It didn't growl or lunge at her. It just sat down in front of Anna, raised its head, and whimpered so pitifully that something inside Anna stirred painfully. It was the sound of absolute, hopeless grief. Anna froze. The sheepdog's gaze was direct and meaningful. There was no madness in it, only supplication. The dog whimpered softly and, turning around, took a few steps toward the weed-covered vacant lot. Then it looked back at Anna. "Follow me, please." Anna didn't know why she obeyed. Her legs carried her after the dog, away from the asphalt path, into the thicket where the city authorities had long since given up on keeping order. Alma, as she was called in her past, forgotten life, led the way confidently. She made her way through the thickets of nettles and burdocks, constantly looking back to make sure the strange, slow woman was following. They came out to an abandoned heating duct. The concrete slabs had sunk, and the ground around them was littered with broken glass and old rubbish. Alma stopped at the very manhole that Anna had seen from afar. Here, far from the hustle and bustle of the park, there was a faint, sweet smell of decay and dampness. The dog poked its nose into the crack and whimpered again. Anna moved closer and crouched down. A thin, barely audible squeak came from the darkness beneath her feet. One, then another. It was the sound of dying life. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She peered into the narrow crack. Below, 1.5 meters down, a cluster of tiny bodies writhed in the sticky mud and darkness. Puppies. They were tiny, blind. Their squeaks were so weak, they sounded like death rattles. The heat outside had turned this concrete trap into a deadly steam room. Alma rushed around, poking Anna's hands with her snout, then back to the hatch as if saying, "Come on, do something. You're a human being. You can do anything." Anna tried to move the heavy cast-iron cover. It was useless. It was too heavy, stuck in the ground. Panic began to rise in her throat. She, who had felt nothing but dull pain for months, suddenly felt a sharp, all-consuming despair. She had to get them out. Right now. She reached into the crack, trying to reach the nearest puppy, but only got her fingers dirty with cold slime. The distance was too great. She took out her phone, Her trembling fingers barely hit the screen. Emergency services. Number 1 and 12. Emergency services. Operator 34, how can I help you? The voice was calm and indifferent. Anna stammered as she began to explain the situation. About the dog, about the manhole, about the dying puppies. Miss, the operator interrupted her, is anyone's life in danger? No, but they're alive. They'll die. Anna almost shouted. Rescuing animals is not within our authority if there is no threat to human life. Please contact animal welfare. A series of short beeps. Tears that had not been there so long ago burned her eyes. She started searching the internet. Help Animals Primorsk. Dozens of links. Private clinics, shelters. The first call. Can you bring them here? We don't have a mobile team. The second. We can take them if the animals are healthy and vaccinated. The third. Miss, we're in quarantine. We're not taking anyone. The circle was complete. No one cared. She crouched by the hatch, Alma sitting next to her heavy head resting on her knees, her whole body trembling. They were both in despair. Finally, on the 20th page of her search, she found a dilapidated website for a private shelter called Hope. The phone number was a cell phone. A hoarse male voice answered. Gromov speaking. Hello, I found some puppies in a drain pipe. They need help. Anna blurted out. There was not a hint of sympathy in the man's voice. Young lady, we don't have any space. None at all. We're completely full. We have dogs sitting in the hallways. But they'll die. Their mother, she brought me here. Please. Anna's voice broke. There was silence on the other end of the line. Anna heard the man sigh heavily. Address, he said curtly. Anna quickly dictated how to find the place. Wait, I'll try to be there in half an hour. The connection was cut. Hope appeared, fragile, almost unreal. Anna stroked Alma, whispering to her and to herself. He'll come. He'll help. Everything will be fine. But the squeaking from under the ground grew quieter and quieter. Viktor Gromov arrived in an old, battered van with the word Hope written on the side. A man of about 45, with a tired, weather-beaten face and calloused hands, got out of the car. He didn't say hello. He just looked at Anna, at the dog at the hatch. Here? He asked. Anna nodded. Viktor took a crowbar and a small flashlight out of the van. With one strong, practiced movement, he pried open the manhole cover and pushed it aside. A heavy smell hit his nose. Viktor shone the flashlight down. Well, he said. Fun. He saw what Anna had seen, a pile of bodies in the mud. But his experienced eye noticed something else. One body lay a little further away, stretched out unnaturally. It wasn't moving. One left, he said emotionlessly. To Anna, those words sounded like a death sentence. She recoiled, pressing her hand to her mouth. The memory she had been running from for months overwhelmed her. The hospital, the white ceiling, the doctor's quiet words, and emptiness. Viktor didn't seem to notice her state. He was working. I need a box, he ordered. In the car, on the back seat. And an old towel. Anna, as if in a fog, went to the van. She moved mechanically, her mind paralyzed by grief. She brought a cardboard box and a worn towel. Viktor was already lying on the ground, leaning over the hatch. Here, take them, he said. He carefully took out the tiny, mud-covered bodies one by one and handed them to Anna. They were hot as coals and barely moving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 alive. Anna placed them in the box, trying to warm them with her breath. Alma rushed around, looking into the hatch and then into the box, her tail twitching anxiously. Viktor climbed out of the hatch, shaking his hands. "It's done," he said. "Let's go. Every minute counts." He loaded the box into the van and gestured for Anna to get in. Alma jumped into the back herself, settling down next to the box and keeping her eyes on it. The car started moving. Anna held the weakest puppy in her arms, trying to rub his little body. Suddenly, it twitched convulsively. Its tiny body went limp in her hands and fell silent. The world cracked again. For Anna Vorontsova, it shrank back to a single point. The tiny, lifeless body in her palms. The same coldness. The same final, irreversible silence. She sat on the hard seat of the rattling van and stared at the dead puppy. But all she could see was the white hospital ceiling. Viktor Gromov's voice snapped her out of her stupor. His voice was even, without a hint of sympathy. "Don't torture yourself, girl. It's natural selection. The weak don't survive." He didn't even look in her direction, his gaze fixed on the road. Anna silently and very carefully moved the body to the corner of the box, away from the others, and covered it with the edge of a towel. She didn't cry. Her tears had run dry months ago. Instead, there was a scorched desert inside her. Viktor was right. The weak don't survive. She was weak. Her child. She shook her head sharply, chasing away the forbidden thought. The van turned off the asphalt onto a dirt road, raising a cloud of dust. A couple of minutes later, they pulled up to a tall metal fence. Behind it lay hell, or at least its gateway. As soon as the engine died, a wall of sound crashed down on them. Hundreds of dogs barked, howled, and whined in different voices. This chorus of despair, loneliness, and hope beat against their ears and penetrated their skin. Viktor got out of the car as if he hadn't noticed the noise. He opened the creaky gate. "Welcome to hope," he muttered. There was no hope here. It smelled of dogs, bleach, and despair. Rows of kennels stretched along the fence. Each one, designed for 1 or 2 dogs, held 3 or even 4. The animals threw themselves against the mesh, snapping their teeth or, conversely, huddled in the far corner, staring at the world with a hunted look. "Follow me, quickly," Viktor said. He grabbed the box with the puppies and quickly headed for a small 1-story building that looked like a barracks. Alma jumped out of the truck bed and trotted after him, not falling behind. Anna trailed behind, feeling like a stranger on this island of suffering. Inside the barracks, the noise did not subside but became hollow. There were cages in the narrow corridor. From one of them, a husky with different colored eyes stared at Anna. And in another, an old dog with a missing paw curled up in a ball. Viktor entered a small room filled with medical cabinets and a stainless steel table. "Here," he said, carefully emptying the contents of the box, live puppies, onto the table. The little creatures barely moved. "Right. Glucose. Saline solution. Subcutaneous. 20 cubic centimeters for each one to start with. We need to rehydrate them." His movements became quick and precise. He acted like a field surgeon in the heat of battle. He took out syringes and ampules. His tired face was transformed, showing extreme concentration. He ushered Alma out into the corridor and closed the door. The dog scratched and whined outside. Anna stood by the wall, watching helplessly. She was superfluous. "Hold it," Viktor commanded unexpectedly, handing her the puppy, the one they would later name Igor. He was the strongest of the survivors. "Hold him tight. Don't let him move." Anna took the warm bundle in her hands. He was almost weightless. Viktor deftly inserted the needle into the back of his neck. The puppy squeaked, and Anna flinched but didn't let go. She held on. For the first time in a long time, she was doing something important, something that a life depended on. They treated all 4 of them. Victor laid them in a clean box under an infrared lamp. The little calves, having received a dose of life-giving moisture, seemed to come back to life a little. Their squeaks became more confident. Victor wiped his hands. His face looked tired again. Now we wait. Either they'll pull through or they won't. 50-50. He went out into the hallway and returned with a bowl of water and food for Alma. He led her into the room. The sheepdog rushed to the box, sniffed each puppy, and licked them carefully. Convinced that they were safe, she eagerly pounced on the food. Anna watched the scene, and the ice in her heart seemed to begin to melt little by little. She saw not just a dog. She saw a mother, just like herself. Only Alma was able to save her children, and she couldn't. "You can go home," said Victor, sitting down on a stool and lighting a cigarette right there in the room. "I'll stay here. Keep an eye on things." Anna shook her head. "I'll stay here." Victor shrugged. He didn't care. They sat in silence, broken only by Alma's slurping and the quiet squeaking of the puppies under the lamp. An hour passed, then another. The puppies were asleep. Their breathing became more even. It seemed that the crisis had passed. Anna felt a slight, almost forgotten sense of relief. But Victor suddenly frowned. He walked over to the box and listened. "I don't like this," he muttered. He picked up Igor, the puppy Anna had been holding. He put his ear to its tiny chest. "What is it?" Anna whispered. "He's not breathing right. Hear that? A wheezing sound, a heart murmur." He put the puppy back down. He looked at Anna with a long, heavy gaze. There was no cynicism in his eyes, only a tired statement of fact. "This one probably has a congenital heart defect. Dehydration and stress triggered the process. He needs a full examination, an ultrasound, a cardiologist." He paused, exhaling a stream of smoke. "He needs surgery, expensive surgery. We don't have that kind of money, and we never will." He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, as if he were talking about the weather. For him, it was routine. Another life that couldn't be saved because of a lack of money. The hope that had barely begun to grow in Anna's heart was shattered. She looked at little Igor, who was desperately clinging to life, and realized that he had just been sentenced to death. Viktor Gromov's words fell into the silence of the room like stones into still water. Sentenced. Anna Vorontsova looked at the little ball of fur, desperately fighting for every breath, and saw in him a reflection of her own most terrible loss. Helplessness. That was the feeling she knew so well. The feeling when you can't do anything. When the most important things in the world are decided without your participation, behind the closed doors of operating rooms and doctors' offices. She waited for the familiar apathy to return, for her to simply nod and mentally bury this puppy, just as she had buried a part of herself. But that didn't happen. Instead, a cold, quiet rage rose inside her. She looked at Victor. His face was impenetrable. He had already accepted it. He had seen it hundreds of times. But Anna did not want to accept it. Not this time. "How much?" Her voice was quiet but surprisingly firm. Victor raised an eyebrow in surprise. He had expected tears, hysterics, anything but this businesslike question. "How much, I'm asking?" Anna repeated, looking him straight in the eye. Victor paused, stubbed out his cigarette on the edge of the ashtray. "A lot," he finally replied. "The examination, a heart ultrasound with a specialist, the operation itself. 80,000, maybe 100, if we're lucky. This is Moscow, baby. We don't have doctors like that here." He smiled bitterly. I don't even have enough to feed my family next week. People bring me 100 rubles and think they've saved the world. But I have 300 hungry mouths to feed every day. He gestured around his shabby office. What do you mean, 100,000? Anna didn't look away. She took her smartphone out of her pocket. The screen lit up her pale, determined face. She was used to solving problems, designing gardens, drawing up estimates, negotiating with suppliers. That was the other Anna, and now that Anna was coming back. What if, on the internet? She asked. Victor laughed openly, dryly, joylessly. Girl, are you from the moon? Open any social network. There are thousands of stories like that. Dying kittens, run-over dogs, sick puppies. Everyone is in grief. Everyone needs money. People are tired. They scroll through it without reading. He lit another cigarette. It doesn't work. Not on this scale. We'll try, Anna said firmly. Her fingers were already flying across the screen. I need a good photo. Clear. I need to see his eyes. And tell me everything. The whole story. From the beginning. About his mother, about the manhole, about how you got them out. No embellishments. Just the truth. Victor looked at her in amazement. This quiet, timid woman in a baggy dress had suddenly turned into a commander. Her voice took on a steely tone. Something in her determination made him stand up. He walked over to the box. There's not enough light, he muttered. Victor picked up a table lamp and pointed it at the puppies. Anna crouched down, holding her phone close to Igor. She took several pictures. A tiny body in the harsh light of the lamp. Sunken sides. His eyes were still closed, but it seemed as if all the pain in the world was hidden beneath his thin eyelids. It was a powerful image. Heartbreaking. Speak, Anna commanded, opening her notes. And Victor, without knowing why, began to speak. Dryly, matter-of-factly, he laid out the facts. About the phone call, about the manhole, about the 6 puppies, of which only 4 remained, about the diagnosis. An open arterial duct, most likely. Simply put, a hole in the heart. The blood is mixing, the lungs can't cope. Without surgery, it's a matter of days. A week at most. Anna listened and typed. She didn't edit. She wrote everything down as it was, adding her own details. About the mother's gaze, about the indifference of passersby, about the short beeps on the emergency service's phone. It wasn't just a request for help. It was an accusation against the world that was passing by. She found the Hope Shelter's page on social media. It had 300 followers, and the last post was a month old. Anna copied the card number linked to the shelter. She attached a photo of Igor and the text. It was long, disjointed, and emotional. Her finger hovered over the post button. For a moment, she was overcome with fear. What if Victor was right? What if this was just a cry into the void? She looked at Alma, who was sitting by the box, staring intently at her children. The sheepdog's gaze was full of hope. Hope for humanity. Anna pressed the button. The post flew into the digital abyss. Silence reigned in the room once again. Only the quiet sniffling of the puppies and the hum of the old lamp could be heard. Victor smoked silently, staring at the wall. Anna sat staring at her phone screen. A minute passed. 2. Nothing. Not a single like, not a single comment. Emptiness. Victor looked at her with poorly concealed sympathy that said, I told you so. Anna felt a chill inside. Was it all for nothing? Had she given herself and this dog false hope? She was about to block her phone and admit defeat. And at that moment, the screen lit up. The phone buzzed softly, vibrating in her hand. A notification from her banking app had arrived. Deposit, 100 rubles. 100 rubles. The amount was insignificant compared to the 100,000 she needed. But for Anna Vorontsova, it was louder than any alarm bell. The phone rang again. Deposit, 300 rubles. The message accompanying the payment read, "Hang in there, kid." Then another, and another. 500 rubles. 200 rubles for good luck. The smartphone screen did not go dark, flashing with new notifications. Viktor Gromov, hearing the first sounds, came closer. He silently looked over Anna's shoulder at the scrolling line of numbers. His cynical smile slowly faded from his face. In its place appeared a confused, almost childlike surprise. Accustomed to begging for every penny, he couldn't believe what was happening. People weren't just transferring money, they were writing. A thread of comments grew under Anna's post. How awful. What is the world coming to? I transferred a little. I hope the baby will be okay. Oh my God, I'm crying. People, you are animals. How can you walk past this? Does anyone know how to contact the volunteers? Maybe they need help with food or other supplies. The post began to spread at an incredible speed. Someone shared it in a large city public group. From there, it spread to animal rescue groups across the country. The story Anna wrote on her knee in the stuffy shelter room turned out to be the nerve that hundreds of people responded to. It was real. There was no pretense or speculation, just the bare facts and raw pain. Anna and Viktor sat side by side, mesmerized by the phone screen. In the first half hour, 7,000 rubles were raised. That was more than Viktor's shelter sometimes collected in a month. They're sending it, Viktor said quietly, as if he couldn't believe it himself. He stood up and paced around the room, ruffling his hair. His usual armor of fatigue and cynicism was cracking. At that moment, another phone rang in Anna's pocket, her personal phone. The number was unfamiliar. She answered. "Hello, is this Anna?" asked a pleasant female voice. "Yes," Anna replied, confused. "My name is Marina. I'm the administrator of the typical Primorsk public page. We posted your post. It went viral. Do you need any more help? Maybe some informational support? We can pin the post for a day." Anna didn't know how to respond right away. Yes, of course. Thank you so much." "You're welcome," Marina replied. "I have a Labrador myself. I can just imagine. Anyway, keep us posted. People are very concerned." The phone call was like a dam bursting. Viktor's phone, listed on the shelter's page, started ringing off the hook. People called offering to bring food, medicine, and diapers. Local news outlets called asking for comments. Viktor, who at first responded with one-word answers, gradually got into the swing of things. He told the story of the rescue over and over again, and the usual fatigue was gone from his voice. He was filled with excitement. Anna sat in the middle of this chaos and felt life returning to her body. She responded to comments, thanked people for transfers, and coordinated those who wanted to come. She didn't think about herself. All her pain and apathy were replaced by one simple task: to save Igor. She lost track of time. When she looked at the account again, there was already 43,000 rubles. A little over 2 hours had passed. A young girl, one of the few volunteers at the shelter, peeked into the room. "Viktor Pelich, there's a car at the gate. They say help has arrived." Viktor ran out into the street. Anna followed him. An expensive black SUV was parked at the gate. A respectable man in a suit got out. He silently opened the trunk, which was filled to the brim with bags of premium food, packages of diapers, and medicine. "This is for your wards," he said, a little embarrassed. My wife read the post. Well, she told me to help. He shook Victor's hand awkwardly, got into the car, and drove away without even giving his name. Victor and Anna stood by the mountain of bags, silently looking at each other. Behind them, the shelter howled, barked, and whined. But now the noise seemed less like a chorus of despair and more like a hymn of hope. Anna's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her husband. Her heart skipped a beat. She had completely forgotten about him. She had left work several hours ago without warning, without answering his messages. He must be going crazy. "Yes, Andre," she replied, trying not to let her voice tremble. "Anya, where are you? Are you okay? I've called all the hospitals." There was genuine panic in his voice. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I couldn't talk. I'm fine. I'm at an animal shelter." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "A shelter? What kind of shelter? Anna, what's going on?" Anna took a deep breath. "I'll tell you everything. I'll be home soon and I'll explain everything. Don't worry." She hung up before he could answer. She wasn't ready for this conversation. Not now. She returned to the room with the puppies. The amount on the screen had exceeded 80,000 rubles, and it continued to grow. 3.5 hours after the post was published, the account had 106,000 rubles. The necessary amount had been raised. Victor found a number on his phone. It was the number of the best veterinary cardiac surgeon in Moscow, whom he knew only from scientific articles and stories from colleagues. "Sergei Vladimirovich. Hello. My name is Victor Gromov. I'm from Primorsk. I have a case, very urgent." He quickly but clearly explained the situation. The surgeon on the other end of the line listened attentively. "Bring him in," he said after a short pause. "Tomorrow, in the morning. I'll find a slot for you." Victory. Complete and unconditional. But how to transport a tiny dying puppy 1,000 kilometers away? By plane, long paperwork, by car, he wouldn't survive the road. Victor hung up the phone. The joy on his face was replaced by a new problem. "I have an idea," he said, looking at Anna. "It's risky, but it might work." His eyes flashed with the desperate spark of an adventurer who had been hiding behind a mask of cynicism for so long. Viktor Gromov's risky idea turned out to be absurdly simple and brazen at the same time. "The night train," he said, looking at Anna. "In the conductor's compartment. No documents, no ticket. For money." For Anna, who was used to living by the rules, it sounded like a scene from a movie. "Is that legal?" she asked, confused. Victor smiled, and his former cynicism flashed again in that smile. "When it comes to life, legality is a flexible concept. I have a friend who is the train conductor. He's a decent man, but understanding. Maybe he'll see his way into it. Especially if..." He didn't finish, but Anna understood. If they backed up the request with a substantial argument from the money that people had sent. She nodded. There was no choice. While Victor was on the phone with his acquaintance, arranging a small parcel to Moscow, Anna tried to gather her thoughts. She had to go home. Andre was waiting for her. Their apartment, which had become a quiet tomb after the tragedy, now seemed like the most terrifying place on earth. There, questions awaited her. Questions she had no answers to. Silence filled with unspoken pain awaited her. Here, in the noisy, dog-smelling shelter, she was needed. She was taking action. Back home, she would once again become a shadow of her former self. "It's settled." Victor's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. "The train leaves at 11 o'clock tonight. The conductor in the 8th car will be waiting. But only one person can go. Igor needs constant care on the road. Injections, warmth. He looked at Anna. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. He couldn't abandon his 300 charges. She had to go. The thought of traveling to Moscow, a strange city, with a dying puppy in her arms, frightened her. But the thought of returning home frightened her even more. "I'll go," she said firmly. Victor nodded, as if he had no doubt about her answer. He quickly packed a bag for her, a thermal container for the puppy, several syringes, ampules of glucose and saline solution, a hot water bottle, and a pack of diapers. Every 2 hours, inject 5 cubic centimeters subcutaneously, right here in the neck. Keep the hot water bottle warm. The main thing is not to shake it. He instructed her like a recruit before battle. In his eyes, she saw not only trust, but also the enormous responsibility he was placing on her. He was giving her the most precious thing he had, a life he had saved. "I need to go home. For an hour to pack my things," Anna said. "The taxi is already waiting at the gate," Victor replied. He had thought everything through. Anna left the shelter, and her familiar world came crashing down on her. The noise of the city, the lights, the cars rushing somewhere. It all seemed distant and unreal. In the taxi, she called her husband. "Andrei, I'm coming home. I need to go to Moscow for a couple of days. Please don't ask any questions. I'll explain everything when I get back." She spoke quickly, not letting him get a word in, and hung up. She knew it was cruel, but she couldn't do anything else. The apartment greeted her with ringing silence. Andrei was sitting in the kitchen, staring at one spot. His face was haggard, and an untouched cup of tea stood on the table. When Anna entered, he looked up at her. His eyes were a mixture of fear, resentment, and helplessness. "Anya," he began. "Not now," she interrupted. "Please." She went into the bedroom, opened the closet, and began throwing the first things she found into her bag: jeans, a t-shirt, a sweater. Andrei stood in the doorway, watching her. "You won't even tell me where you're going or why?" There was a note of desperation in his voice. "I'm saving a life," Anna replied without turning around. "Whose?" he almost shouted. "Who's going to save our life, Anna? Do you even understand what's happening to us? We're drowning, and you're running away to save..." "Who?" Anna froze. His words hit home. She turned around, and for the first time in many months, she looked at him not through the veil of her grief, but truly. She saw how old he had become. She saw wrinkles around his eyes that hadn't been there before. She saw the same pain she felt, only he carried it inside him, trying to be strong for both of them. "I'm saving a puppy," she said quietly. "He's dying. He has a heart defect. We've raised money for an operation in Moscow." Andrei looked at her as if she were speaking a foreign language. A puppy. Surgery. Moscow. It sounded like nonsense. "You're leaving everything and going to another city because of a dog?" he asked incredulously. "Yes," Anna replied. "Because his mother asked me for help. Because I can't let him die. Because She faltered. "I couldn't save our son. So let me at least save him." The words she had kept inside for so long burst out and hung in the air, burning with their candor. Andrei recoiled as if he had been struck. Tears glistened in his eyes. He walked over to her and took her hands. Her hands were ice cold. "Anya, forgive me," he whispered. "I didn't understand. I only thought about myself." He hugged her tightly, and in his embrace, Anna allowed herself to cry for the first time in a long time. She cried silently, her whole body shaking, her face buried in his shoulder. These were tears not only of grief, but also of relief. The wall she had built between them had collapsed. They arrived at the station together. Victor was already waiting for them on the platform with a thermos container. He handed it to Anna. "Remember what I said. If anything happens, call me anytime." He held out his hand to Andre. "Thank you for letting her go. She's very strong." Andre shook his hand firmly. "Take care of her there." The train started moving. Anna stood in the vestibule, watching the receding figures of her husband and Victor. Two such different men, brought together by her and a little dog's life. In the conductor's compartment, full of government-issued linen and the smell of brewed tea, a heavy-set woman in uniform was waiting for her. She glanced quickly at the container and nodded silently. "Make yourself comfortable here on the fold-down seat, and keep it quiet." Anna sat down, placing her precious burden on her lap. The train picked up speed, carrying her into the unknown, toward the last hope for a tiny creature whose heart beat in unison with her own. But she did not know that the most terrible crisis awaited her ahead, at an altitude of 10,000 meters, when there would be no help anywhere. If the puppy's condition suddenly worsened on the train, and the only chance was to get off at the nearest large station, losing her place at the Moscow clinic, what should Anna have done?